Okay, this will be Ziglar Show episode 838, our regular Wednesday question and answer session with Tom Ziglar. All right, man. So as we're talking about this, the podcast listeners will have just heard the clip from your dad talking about sales and talking about this issue of when someone, I so like this because it's not saying, okay, here you go, you present your product, you present your service, and then I actually forgot to start my recording, Tom. Hold on. Okay, well, here we go. Those on Facebook, you'll have to bear with us. For my team, this will be Ziglar Show episode 838. Yeah, Tom, this issue of sales and specifically of somebody saying no. So you pitch your product, you pitch your service, and they say, not today, not now, or no, whatever. And him saying that they will not change their mind. That's why we're doing this show. That's why I caught on to it, because I believe most people think, okay, if you're going to do all the sales finagling stuff, you are there to convince them and get them to change their mind. And while that may be the case overall, not on that one specific issue. I've been in sales a long time, and that's still just such an uncommon, I think, unknown perspective. And it really feels a lot better. I'm not trying to manipulate them into changing their mind. I'm saying, okay, I got it. That's where they're saying no on. Let's show them more information, right? In essence.
Absolutely. People, one of the sayings that we say is people don't like to be sold, but they love help buying.
Yes.
And so it starts with you've got to have a servant approach, a servant's heart. How do you serve them? And that starts with understanding their needs. What is it they're looking for? And so when you understand what they need and your motivation, your motive is to serve them and provide value and to fulfill that need, that's when you get put in a strong position. And that's where, whether they say yes or no, end up doing business with you or not, you've still laid the foundation for, hey, there's another time, another opportunity. We can still potentially work together if your purpose is to solve a problem and serve their need.
Well, and so one of the first comments we got right here is from Eric Hasselhorst, and he says that the most common objection that he gets with his product is price. But he says, that's okay. They're the wrong person for my service. And I would want to say, hold on now, hold on. I think Zig would say, hold on. That doesn't mean that they said no to the price. What are they really saying no to, though? And I would say they're saying no to the value. Obviously, if the value is there, they would pay the price. So their perceived value is off. There's where we need to help. Is that fair?
Yeah. So in their mind, the price of the good or service isn't worth the value that they're going to receive in that. And gosh, we've done so much development and training on this. And so if you know it is a fit for your prospect, right, that what you're presenting to them is a solution that's going to make them happy, the value is there, then you've got to step back and go, hey, did I understand all the needs? Did I clearly identify the benefits of what this will do? Did I ask the questions to see exactly what it is? And then once you can say yes to all that, then the sales opportunity really begins. One of the things that Dad always talked about, and this is in the book Secrets of Closing the Sale, is he talked about the difference between price and cost.
Right.
Right. Price is a one-time thing. Cost is a lifetime thing.
And I know that story well. It's about you and your bike.
Yeah. So I was just learning how to ride a bike. And so Kevin, we probably went through similar experiences. Once you figured out that you liked the bike, you were all in the bike, right? I mean, it was like, it just dominated your thoughts. So I learned how to ride.
It was a red line. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
I know. Well, you started high end. I started with whatever the 6-year-old Sears model was. Right. And so Dad said, hey, we're going to get you a Sears model. And I don't remember the numbers. It's all detailed in some of our programs, but back then. And so, we're talking almost 50 years ago, because I'm 55. It was like $40 for
Yep.
this bike. And within a month, the sprocket system had to be replaced and they fixed it for free. And then within another month, the handlebar broke off and they fixed it for free. And then within another month, something else went wrong. I think it had to do with the fork on the front. We had to pay for that one, and it was like $6. And at the end of 6 months, Dad had been back to the Sears place like 6 or 7 times and had spent over $60 on it, a $40 bike, and all that time. And so he said, you know what? We're not fixing this again. We're going to Swin, which was the big deal. This is before the BMX and the Red Line.
Well, and my first bike was a Schwinn. I was talking about the one I pined after, but the first bike was a Schwinn. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we go to Swin and we bought that. And I think it was like $80. It was like twice as much. And I think the only thing that we ever replaced on it was tires. Now we upgraded some stuff because I wanted to be cooler, but not because any of it was bad. And so the first bike ended up costing, in 6 months, the cost of that bike kept going up and up and up and up. The investment in the higher one, that the front end was twice as much. I was still riding that bike when I was 17 or 18 years old. Just amazing how long and the bike was still good. It was a tank. It was just a durable bike. And so that's one of the things that in the sales process, we have to explain the difference between what you offer and what somebody else offers, because they get very confused. What's the price is too high. Wait, are we talking about price or are we talking about cost? That's just the way it is.
Well, and I'm going to say most of the people listening to this, that you have a product or service that I'm going to say is in the premium market. I doubt anybody is here. I hope, and I expect that for the most part, nobody's here selling products based on low cost commodities. Now you may, so maybe somebody has a steel manufacturing and they really can do that, and there's a relevant need for that. But for the most part, our small business owners here are selling quality and selling a premium service. So yeah, if somebody balks on the price, it is a primary thing for all of us to be selling a superior premium product, but we have to show the value. And Tom, I mean, I'm attuned to that in my own purchasing. And there are some things I am buying a good product. I buy good shoes. I just do. I like shoes that are going to last. And being a guy, we can wear the same shoe every day. So it matters. My wife is happy to buy cheap shoes because she's going to wear them, once a year sometimes in the shoe realm. But, good tires, I'm going to buy something premium. But there's plenty of things where I know I'm not going to use it that much. I just need something that'll work for a short period. I even had that with tools. Some of my tools, man, I've got the DeWalt, I've got the premium tools. Some of them, I'll pick up junk from like a jigsaw. I use it once, twice, 3 times a year. I have 2 jigsaws that I bought for like $5 each at different garage sales. I don't care. I think even that's relevant though. And that is coming back to what you said about ethical selling, to understand what does a person need, because there may be somebody and they don't need your premium product. And you would do them a good service to say, you know what, for what you're going to do, I wouldn't pay this much for this product either. Go over here to Bob's Warehouse and you can get it cheaper. You and I were just talking about supplements, Tom, and I'll be candid with everybody. We are going to be coming out with our own supplement. I am through my True Life arena, through our own supplements. And some of those, when you're going to get a probiotic, you need a good probiotic. I mean, that's a top tier one. Fish oil, I think, is a top tier one. I think a multivitamin for the most part, but you get down in some of the other ones, vitamin D, vitamin C, they have a better shelf life. It's not that important. And we talked about, should we just not sell those things and just say, look, just go get whatever's over at Walmart. It'll be fine. I think what we're going to do is have ours, but literally just cut down to where we may not make much of anything, but for the benefit of our customers, so they can get it all in one place. We're just not going to make that much anyways. What if we don't make anything? We just cover our cost. Well, we're at square, we're at even to if we had sent somebody elsewhere anyways, we weren't going to make any money. So let's just not make any money on our own product. But, again, going back and looking, what do we believe for the person? Because I do hear people a lot of times, Tom, and they know they have a premium product. They know it's a better value overall, but they're so stuck on that, they won't listen. And they won't listen to sometimes the reality is not everybody needs that premium of a product. It depends on your usage. If you have a bicycle that you're going to ride twice a year, I wouldn't spend what I spend on a bike that I'm going to take out on the hardest of the hard Rocky Mountain, massive declines, where you're riding the brakes, hydraulic brakes for half an hour, going over rocks and roots and stuff. I'm going to use mine a lot more. And so for me to sell you on, folks, you got to have a high-end Cannondale racing mountain bike like I do. That's relevant to very few people. So again, it comes back to understanding your person. So back to Eric's, maybe that is the wrong person who doesn't need that high end of a product, or he needs to sell the value. And that's individual.
Yeah. So let me talk about, you've got to identify who your customer is. In our partnership with Howard Partridge and our coaching with small business owners, we really advocate and recommend that all of our business owners, regardless of what business they're in, is that they sell the experience. And I'm going to use an example that we use in our workshops. And I think this comes out of Joseph Michelli. He wrote the Starbucks Experience. So it's all about coffee, right? Fantastic book. In fact, we need to get him on the podcast because he's got a new book coming out at the end of the year.
What's the name again?
The book I'm talking about now is called The Starbucks Experience, which he wrote a number of years ago, but he's got a new book coming out.
What was his name though?
Joseph Michelli.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's dynamite. But basically coffee, there's four stages of coffee. When you first buy coffee, it's a commodity, and a commodity, they get $1 or $2 a pound for it. And then they move it to packaging, and, they roast it and they put it in packaging. You go to the grocery store, and then what do you spend? Anywhere from $4 to $20 for a 12-ounce package, right? It's not even in a 16-ounce, right? And so what are you doing then? Well, you're paying for the packaging. You're paying for the branding. Well, then if you go to your local diner, like a Denny's, what are you going to pay by the coffee, by the cup? $2.50 for a bottomless cup. Well, how many cups can they make out of a pound of coffee? At Denny's, they can make 60 to 90 cups.
Yeah, because it's weak as tea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then you go to, so you can see the margins keep getting better, right? Well, what are you buying at Denny's? You're buying service. So it goes commodity, then you're buying packaging, and then you're buying service. Well, when you go to Starbucks and pay as much as you want, what are you buying? You're buying experience.
Absolutely. You're
buying the atmosphere. You're buying, if you're a regular, you're buying the fact that they call you out by name. They've got their own language, and it's not as much as it used to be, but it used to be kind of a status thing. Hey, I went there, blah, blah, blah. And so what we recommend is that, when he said, well, they're not the right customer, then I really love the idea, because the money is made in the experience. Profitable business happens when you focus on the experience. And so whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, you can be a website consultant, you can be a clothes retailer, you can be whatever you want. If you focus on the experience and deliver extraordinary experience every time, a phenomenal experience every time, then you charge more. But why do you charge more? So that your customer has peace of mind. They sleep good at night. They know that no matter what happens, you're going to make it right. They get the little bit of extra. Companies that focus on price, you've already lost. Amazon and Walmart are going to kill you.
Totally. Well, and when you say experience, Tom, I mean, historically, I'm the kind of guy who's going to go with the boutique shop. I'm not going with the big chain. I'm not going with the big corporation. That's usually my mentality, except more and more I buy from Amazon. It's reliable. I know I'm going to get it delivered at a quick rate. I know the return policy is super easy. And I am focused enough on my own selfishness and self-desire that, man, that's really hard to get me to not go through them. Same thing with Starbucks. They're consistent. All the stuff that you said, when I walk in, they know my name. It's like going into Cheers. They know my order. I don't need mobile ordering. As soon as I walk in the door, they see me, they know what my order is, and they take care of me. They're smiling. It's like exactly what Chick-fil-A gets lauded for, their customer service. And I don't even look, that's not true. I just said, I don't even look at the price. I do, because I'm sometimes ashamed about, I go in there for my $4.72 drink. And I think, my gosh, for double that, I can buy a whole bag. And how many cups can I get out of that? But there you go. And there's why they get my, so again, when we're looking at price, why are you premium? And thanks for pointing that. It's not just the product or service. So much of it is the delivery. When you talk about price, Tom, Brian Lynchard here, and he sparked a whole thread in this Facebook question. He said, I sell to engineers, mostly in factories and such. They want great service. So he's talking about the engineer, the end recipient. They want great service, quality, delivery, and relationships. But the purchasing people often get involved, that they require 3 bids and they generally want the lowest price. There's where and that sparked, he and a couple other guys started talking about, ways they can do it. It was a great discussion amongst some guys who were in a similar industry. And I'm not going to go through the whole point, but there comes into the issue of who are you ultimately selling to and how do you get through to them. Now, Tom, you have far more to say on this. I assume. I don't know the whole corporate arena and with that, but I do know there's a lot of people and they know who their end recipient is in a given business. But what we're talking about here is in essence a gatekeeper. So realizing that your first sell is to that gatekeeper, or how can you circumvent them? That's about as far as I'll go. Cause again, I don't know the depths of an industry like that. You probably do more, Tom.
Yeah, and this is to know, you've got to know your customer, who your target is, your avatar, and you've got to know the answer to this question. Hey, when something goes wrong, what happens? Right. And so if you're selling to engineers and it's a critical component to a piece of equipment or machinery or a project, and the shipment gets delayed, or the part comes in and there's too many defects and it delays a multi-million-dollar project by a day or two, there is a huge risk involved with saving a few pennies. And so you've got to know the consequences of what happens if it goes wrong. I remember when I got married, we called it a condominium, but Kevin, it was really a small 1-bedroom apartment that they put condominium label on it. And we'd been there, it was brand new. We'd been there about 2 years, and we come back and there's a note on our front door. We were an upstairs apartment, and they had come inside because our hot water heater had broken and flooded the downstairs apartment. So insurance covered everything. The plumber came out. I think our bill was like $150 to cover the deductible. And I asked the plumber, I said, what happened here? And he said, well, whoever built this complex decided when they installed the hot water heaters that they would spend 89 cents on a PVC connector instead of what we recommend, which is brass, which was $2. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, there's about 200 units here. And they saved about $250. And that was a $2,500 hot water leak is what that was when you looked at replacing the roof and repainting and all the different things that happened. So that's the difference between price and cost. And so you've got to know the negative. Now I'm going to go to the other side. So when somebody, and this is the ultimate answer to the question, when you say to their prospect, here, this is what it is. They look at it and they go, the price is too high. Okay. And you can only do this after you've established a relationship. You've talked about the qualifications of your business. You've got testimonials, you've got educational, you've got the sheets on the wall that say you're a pro in this business, right? When they say the price is too high, you simply pause and you look them in the eye and you say, Mr. Prospect, our company decided 20 years ago, however old your company is, that we would rather explain the price one time rather than to apologize for poor quality and service over and over again.
Yeah.
And I bet you're glad we made that decision, aren't you?
Aren't you? Yes.
And so here's the key: is in sales, you always ask a question back, because now it's in their court. Because now they can tell you, well, the reason I want this part is I'm putting it on an old boat and we're only going to use it for 3 more months and it's not even worth salvaging. Or they might turn around and say, wow, I never thought of it that way. That makes sense. What do you mean poor quality and service? And then you can just simply ask them, what happens if it breaks down out on the lake? Right? Then they've got to answer that, and they'll do that. So we had a company come out and they were looking at doing outdoor lighting on our house, to make the house look great at night, and in the sales. And I was speaking for their company, or for an association or a group of these outdoor lighting companies. And I asked him, I said, what's your greatest objection? He said, price. So I gave him that. So 2 weeks later, when I'm speaking at their conference, he comes to me when I arrive in the hotel, and he runs up to me. He says, Tom, you're not going to believe it. I go, what? He goes, I did a bid for an apartment, for a commercial building, an apartment area. And it was a $65,000 bid for all these lights. And the property manager, who is usually not the final decision maker, right? They usually have to go to the ownership group and get approval. I gave him the quote and he said, the price is too high. And he said, I gave him back your thing. Mr. Prospect, our company decided 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he said there was silence for about a minute, a long silence. And you never interrupt the silence. Okay. This is key to sales. You let them think. The first one to talk is the buyer.
The glorious pause. Yes.
That's right. And he said, you know what? You're right. And so as the property manager, we decided to explain the price one time rather than to apologize for poor quality and service. What the property manager did in his head is he was like, yeah, I'm going to get a call at 2:00 in the morning because the lights are off and the property owner is out there and it's unsafe. And I'm going to have to round up a company who gave me the lowest price, and they're probably not going to be able to get out there the same day. And so for a little bit more money, they get peace of mind. They get, all this, reinforced service and everything else. So that's why, and he said, we made the sale. First time out of the gate, just using that one simple phrase.
Well, and I'm sitting here grabbing off the back because I wanted to hold it up. This book, folks, what Tom just said right there, Secrets of Closing the Sale. This is, again, I'm going to say it over and over. This is where sales is not manipulation. It's not getting people to do things that they don't want. It's helping somebody with an authentic value like what Tom just did. That was a benefit. That sale of lights was a benefit to that guy for so many years. And thank goodness the person selling them had read Secrets of Closing the Sale, that heard this stuff, so they could help them get something that would benefit them. So let's keep going down that road, Tom, because this is another one, which I know is a consummate story that you have told from your dad, from being with your dad it was Denny's or something like that, about life insurance. So Janice here on the thread, she says she sells life insurance and they always say they can't afford it. No matter how much I try to show there is a need. or that they just don't need it. Okay, so let's hit that one head up because we tend to think, oh, especially with a budget thing or something selling to an individual that can't afford it. We think, come on, everybody affords what they need, right? Everybody who says they can't afford it is walking around with an iPhone that's a later model than mine is. Come on. So that's how I tend to think. But let's say you've got the consummate Dave Ramsey couple. They have gotten out of debt. They have spent every penny down to zero. They're really being good stewards of their money. And they look at this life insurance. Let's literally use that as a product. They look at that and go, oh my gosh, let's say, what's the average life insurance for, let's say, somebody in their 30s these days, Tom? I don't even know, for a decent $150 or something a month.
If you're getting term, it's not a lot. And of course, Dave's a big fan of term life insurance.
Can we play with $150? Is that fair or is that too high?
Yeah, you can play with that. I mean, you can
it's
get
$1 million policy or something.
Yeah, it's if you're good health in your 30s, it's not a lot of money.
Okay, so let's say 100, but let's say it's $150. Let's say it's a lower income. They're bringing in, I don't know, $3,000 a month, and they've got a mortgage, they've got a kid, and it is tight. There's not an abundance, and they look at that and go, "Oh my gosh, the money is literally not there." At least as they have it. So they are legitimate in saying, we can't afford that. So let's say they see value, but they can't afford that. Now, again, the issue then is showcasing that with life insurance, which I'm a believer in. I mean, I've known people, as you have, Tom, that have passed away, don't have life insurance, and it has devastated their family. Happens all the time to people of all age. I mean, not age ranges, income levels as well. It's really something along with health insurance. I mean, you've got to have it in our day and age, in our world. You pretty much need to have this. So how do you take somebody there and showcase them a value? Because you're talking about somebody, if they're going to afford it and they're not being frivolous with their money, something's going to have to give. That's a big sell. They're going to have to give something up to do that. But again, that this is, who doesn't need life insurance? If you're average couple with a kid, especially if you're not making great income, you've got to have it. If you're a guy and you're the primary income earner, or the woman, either way, you've got to have this. So Tom, hit that one. Cause that's very legitimate.
And so here's the foundation of this. You should be representing and selling something, whether you're the business owner or working for another company, whatever it is, that you have a strong belief and moral conviction in. In other words, you have to have the confidence to know that whoever buys this product or service, they are going to be delighted and served well. If that's not your conviction, if you're not sure you have a good product or service, if it's not really benefiting someone, then move on. Go find something that you can believe in. And the reason I say that is you have a moral obligation to be a professional, to show the benefits, and to help the person, to help them buy, to help them understand, here's what happens if you do, here's what could happen if you don't. Yep. So now I'm 27, 28 years old, and Dad and I are in Atlanta. He's just spoken at an event. I was there to sell product and to help out. It was a Friday night deal, if I remember right. We didn't have dinner because he was speaking right after dinner, so he didn't like to eat much. And we got done about 9:30, and we're packing up the leftover product in boxes. And so we're driving back to the hotel, and Dad says to me, "Hey, do you want to grab a bite to eat?" And, I'm 28 years old.
What kid says no to that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, yeah. So as we get closer to the hotel, we pull off, and there's a Denny's, right? And so it's 11 o'clock at night now, 10:30, 11ish. And we go in there, and they seat us, and then our waitress comes up, and she's a nice lady, gray hair, between, I couldn't tell if she was 65, 70, something like that. Southern, very sweet. And she took our drink order and said, "I'll be back for your main order when I bring your drinks." And as she walks off, Dad leans into the table, and he looks at me, and he says, "Son, what a shame. An insurance man didn't do his job." And I said, "Dad, explain. I don't know what you mean." And he said, "Well, look at her. She's probably 70. It's Friday night, it's 11 o'clock at night. Do you think she is working Friday night at 11 at Denny's at 70 because she wants to or she has to? And I said, well, I would bet it's because she has to. And he said, yeah. And so I want you to think back 30 or 40 years ago, the odds are really good that an insurance salesperson presented an insurance policy to her and her husband and didn't make the sale. And because they didn't make the sale, that's why she's working at Denny's when she's 70. And boy, did that hit me, right? Because it changes it raises the stakes. It gives you the moral. You see, Dad said this, that selling is a transference of feeling. And so if you're selling insurance and you're working with a family of any age, and you've got friends that you've been in the business a while, you've read about it, and you know that tragedy is going to happen, right? We just don't know when. And it happens to young people and middle-aged and older people. And when it happens, you can either be protected and take care of those you love, or the tragedy is just beginning, right? Because now everything changes. And so when you have that moral conviction, so now what you start doing is you start thinking, golly, if I was that family, knowing what I know, what would I want me to have? Right? What would I want me to have? And then when that moral, that selling, that transfer to feeling happens, that changes everything. So, and it's just the same way. You know, we work with a lot of service industries, and there's a lot of upsells that go on in service, like carpet protectorate and some things like that. And some of them aren't so good. Some of them are fantastic, right? If you have a fantastic upsell or additional thing that the client needs to consider, you have a moral obligation to share it with them. It's up to them to say no, right? It's their decision to say no. But if they say yes, and then the issue happens, guess what? You've saved them substantially more than they invested. And that's a good thing.
Totally. We have a Ziglar listener. I wish I could pull up his name, but he testified once, and it was one of our Q&As that he responded to. It was in regards to somebody, having a product or service and sales. And his experience was, as I think, boy, if I can remember correctly, it was like his father, something that died, didn't have insurance, devastated the family financially. He saw that happen. Today, he sells life insurance like the world is on fire, because he absolutely believes it. And so you mentioned the quote, and Tom, I used to have it as the signature on my email signature, and because it's one of my favorite quotes by Zig Ziglar. If you believe your product or service can fulfill a true need, it's your moral obligation to sell it. And I have always, it's been a dear quote to me, because I see so many people with products or service that they really believe in, they know they can help them, but they don't sell it with that intensity. Now, that doesn't mean, it's probably because they've been burned by a salesperson who was too pushy and all that. This is about caring, but to sell it with that emotion, that's the kind of person with a true experience, a life insurance person. I want the person whose life was devastated because their dad didn't have it, selling to me, knowing that they're there to sell this to me. They would sell it to me if it cost them money, much less they made money. They so believe in it. So it's just, yeah, this is the spirit of selling that we're talking about. So another one here, Tom, Jennifer Meisel, she said, often price is an issue, but the next big issue is let me think about it, in quotes. How often do you see that? So I'll tell you folks, if you're ever trying to sell me something and I say, let me think about it, the answer is no, but I really don't want to offend you. That's it. And I think for the most part, that's it. It's just a nice way of saying no. So, and I was taught, maybe is the worst thing. You want to come to a yes or no. How many salespeople will out there and go, so today you talked to 10 people. How many did you sell? Man, I didn't quite sell them. I got 6 people who are really interested, that are thinking about it. Those are no's. And we need to bring them to that. So to realize that, let me think about it's a nice no. But I mean, Tom, right there, you could do a whole sales show on maybe. And we see so many people who try to rest on maybe. How did Zig treat maybe?
Yeah. So, and this is in our own internal business, especially when we're dealing with organizations that have more than one decision maker. There always has to be a sense of urgency in the offer. And the reason is it helps us understand yeses and nos and maybes. If there is no sense of urgency, and what is a sense of urgency? So I like to create in a package and whatever we do that delivers an unbelievable experience. And I will package it up and we will say something like, and we qualify early and we say, hey, when will this happen? Who are the decision makers? What's your time frame for making the decision? We get all that. I know all that information before we say, hey, here's what we think is the solution for you. Here's the proposal, and we have all that in advance. And the proposal will say, hey, you know what? Based on your training and everything, if we get this kicked off and we put a date in there, and it could be the end of the month, the end of the week, whatever, based on what information they've given, we can throw this in, or we can offer this extra benefit to it. That takes a lot of the maybes out. And the reason we do that is because we know that our enemy isn't no, our enemy is wait.
Yeah.
Right. Our enemy is wait. The world is so distracted. And so we've got to have a compelling reason to say yes. And so if they say, well, I'm just not really sure, then I like this question, and I do a flip on this, and we've covered it in other podcasts. But I say, okay, so you want to wait? I understand. Earlier you said that your decision time frame was this. Is that still true? Because maybe I don't have all the information. Something changed, and they'll say, yeah, I just now they just kind of come back and you say, you ask a question, so you just want to wait, and now they've got to explain why they want to wait, and that is the root. The waiting is not the issue, it's why they're waiting that's the issue. So another way to get around that question is, okay, so I understand you want to wait. What would make you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close are you to saying yes today? And so they might say, well, I told you I want to wait, so I'm like an 8. Now, most people ask this question. They say, well, great. What needs to happen to move you from an 8 to a 10? Right? Don't ask that question. There's a better, and I wish I could remember who I learned this from, because this is not a Zig thing, but I love it. And they said, instead of saying, how do I move you from an 8 to a 10? You just simply say, wow, an 8. I didn't realize you were that close. Why are you saying an 8? And then you let them talk. And they will sell themselves into it, because now they're going to give you all the reasons why they want it. And they might come back and say, well, truth be told, I do want it as is, but it's just not in the budget. Oh, well, did you know that there's several ways we can approach this? And you might have a payment plan, or maybe it's a package that has 10 things and you can take one thing out. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. One of our favorite ones is, did you know you could get it for free? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, we have a referral program. Do you know other people who like this? Because if you send somebody in, we pay a referral fee. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that opens up the door for a lot of other things. But when you allow them to start telling you why they want it, then you can reaffirm that and say, okay, so it sounds like you really do want it. So what's really holding you up? And then they'll explain that.
Tom, I want people to hear, I feel like we're in like sales to some degree, not to some degree, we know this. Sales in a lot of degrees is harder today than it ever was, because we're exposed to so much. So I think that's fair to say that today it's harder just by proxy, because we have so many offers. We have so much availability. Anything we're going to buy, we can research ad nauseum. We're always wondering, maybe there's a better deal out there. And most of us, and I'm going to put me at top of the list, but most of us, I just don't want to hassle with it. It's just a hassle. Even if it would benefit me, save me money, save me time, give me more benefit. Is it worth the hassle of dealing with it? I was on the phone, a Zoom call 2 days ago with a guy who has been working on me for a year. I didn't totally see enough value in it, but bigger than that, I just don't want to hassle. And I just told him that. So, dude, I hear you. I just don't want to hassle with it. Now, he ultimately ended up showing me some value that I didn't understand. Now I want to do it, even though it's going to be a hassle. Now, he also was able to show me some things that they can do that will make it less of a hassle. But we have people who have so much decision fatigue and fear of, is this really the good deal, that I tend to find myself in the sales position of hitting that head on. So no matter what it is, I know that right now you would really just not rather have to deal with it. You got enough going on in your life. And so let me try to make it as simple as possible and to think through their eyes, to think about what are they going to do. So if there's the possibility, which there almost always is these days, of comparison, let it do the comparison for them. Say, look, man, if I've got this set of Bridgestone tires, here's the comparable set of Michelin's, the comparable set of Dunlops, the comparable set. Here's where it is. This one's cheaper. This is why. This one, may last longer, but this is why. And tell them that. Now, and if you can't do that and showcase that yours is a better one, you got a bigger problem. Understanding that you should be able to do that, though, go ahead and do the homework for them. What can you do to make the decision easier? And Tom, what you just said, if they can give me a sense of urgency, talking about tires, I'll do this. If I go over to my tire place right now and say, yeah, I'm interested in it. The tires aren't too bad, but I'm just wondering if I should do them before winter. They will absolutely, now they know me. Unfortunately, I do way too much business with the amount of cars that we have over there. They know me and they'll say, all right, look, man, if you'll buy them today, we've got this one deal. It ended a while ago, or, this isn't one that we always do, but you're good. We'll do this. And they'll give me some great deal, kind of like on the spot. And I will generally do it right. They gave me a reason to urgency again, which is, we've talked about this in the past. And I think people somewhat get burnt out because every offer, people know that there's urgency, but that's the thing. If we don't have it, we generally will not make that decision. So we're back to value. I mean, ultimately, in reading people's responses, Tom, we've got a bunch here that I'm not going to go through at this point, but it brings me back to the value. I'm going to hold this book up again. That one, whether it's Secrets of Closing the Sale, which I think is the best one out there, but if not, go learn sales. We've got to learn sales. This is the consummate thing where we think that, either you're a salesperson or you're not. That the value should sell itself, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't. And you're going to get beat out by somebody who has lesser value, lesser character, lesser morals than you. And they're going to sell it to them because they've at least done the work of understanding how to help people overcome their real and perceived obstacles. And we need to do that. Again, I go back to your story, Tom, that you told earlier, of thank goodness that person had the understanding to show that the lights person, to showcase somebody the real value and cost of something. And again, I don't know that everybody has a premium product. Wherever you are, there is a way for you to address this and get people past those obstacles.
Yep. So let me just share with everybody. There's 5 reasons that people don't buy. And so whatever your objection you get, it's going to fall into one of these reasons. No need, no want, no hurry, no money, and no trust. And the biggest of these is trust. Mm-hmm. And so when they say the price is too high, that's a money objection, because they don't see the value in the money in what you're saying the price is for what they're getting. Okay. No need, no want. Gosh, if it's a luxury item, or if it's something that isn't required to go about life, if they don't want it, that's a hard thing to overcome. And so you've got to know, do they want it? We have a saying, let's sell them what they want and give them what they need. Right. And so a lot of times a buyer will come in and they'll say, hey, I really, really want this. And so in a scale of problems, they've identified one problem that needs to be addressed, but they've got such a bigger problem over here, but they don't see it. So I would rather sell them what they want and then package in what they really need, right? Because that's a better. But the biggest of these is trust. And so anything that's substantial in an investment, you've got to get this trust piece going on. And so I want to tell a sales story that wraps all that in and is a fantastic process. I was in the sales team at Ziglar. This is like, gosh, 25 years ago. And this guy calls in and he says, Tom, I'm number one on my sales team. I figured out the secret. And I go, okay, what do you do? So he was selling high-end copiers. So $100,000 copying machine complexes for big businesses. And the team had 150 people on it that he was working for. And he said, I've always been in the middle, but this year I'm number one. I figured out the secret. I go, what is it? He goes, the year's halfway over. I can't tell you the secret until I finish number one. So I'll never forget. We made an appointment. He called me back at the end of the year. He finished number one. He said, Tom, here's the secret. My sale is a 3-call close. And so what that means is, he says, I go into the prospect's business. I look at all their needs, what they're currently using. I talk to the staff. What do they like? What don't they like about it? So that's call number one. Call number two is I invite all the users and the leader and the manager who's going to run this department to come to our facility, and we give them a test drive on our different models. And we show them the features, functions, and benefits of each one. And we kind of steer them towards the one that we think is the best fit. And then the third call close is I come into their conference room and I present to usually their CPA or their CFO, the VP of that division, and the office manager who's going to be responsible for that equipment. But here's the secret. And so everybody, this is the secret in sales. He goes, we always get the same 5 objections. Every time we go in, it's the same 5 objections. And each client, the order is a little bit different. And he said, so in all my relationship, I'm asking questions that help me to understand which one of those objections is the most likely to come up. Okay. So that's number one. Do you know the objections you always get? And do you have a professional, practiced response to that? He said, then when I do my presentation, I overcome those objections before they bring them up. So let's just say that the best fit for this client is the deluxe model, and it's 10% higher than anything else on the market. The first thing out of your mouth is, hey, our solution is, I'm just going to tell you right up front, you guys need our deluxe model, and it is the nicest one on the market. In fact, you've probably already checked it out. It's 10% higher than our competitors' top of the line. So I want to share with you right now why the value is there. Okay. And so instead of them saying the price is too high at the end and having to overcome it, he builds it up. So that's what he did. And then here's the number 3. And he said, but the real secret to this is I get to the appointment an hour early on the closing call instead of 30 minutes early. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when I go in to do my final presentation, I'd always get to the client's office 30 minutes early. I would go into their conference room, set it all up. He said, now I get there an hour early and I have Zig's Secrets of Closing the Sale audio cassette. So this is back in the day of cassette tapes. And he said, I know the objections they're going to have. And so I actually listened to Zig overcome those objections on the audio cassette while I'm reading from the underlined pages in the book, Secrets of Closing the Sale. And so what he is doing is he's putting into his mind maybe one of the greatest speakers, salesperson, communicators in the history of the world. He's rehearsing what he's going to say and do before he even goes in there. And so when they throw the objections out, he's got it immediately. And so if you are in the business of selling something that has significant money or significant impact, I'm going to challenge you. What if for the month of December, what if you said, I'm going to have the best month I've ever had? And the way I'm going to do it is I am going to build a relationship which creates trust. And then I'm going to ask questions, which is going to uncover their most likely objection. And then I'm going to read and listen to Zig Ziglar right before I go into that meeting to talk to him about it, specifically around those areas. Do you think that'll have an impact in your career? I think so.
I think so. I mean, this comes back. Yesterday, I did a show with a guy and talked about Zig as a speaker, and that people just think he was just born that way. And of course, what we know is he was one of the greatest students of the skill of speaking that ever walked the planet. And his results showcase that. And so, yeah, here with selling again, and this is selling is influencing. And if we want to influence, I need the same stuff when I talk with my kids as I did today about some new rules around limited screen usage. How's that for a sale? And it's a bigger sale because I want their buy-in. I literally ended it and said, guys, I want to know what you think. If it doesn't feel right to you, let's talk. And while we're texting or while we're doing this here, I saw some text come through from I only have one kid left who hasn't agreed, and I bet he will. But I did my homework. I presented it in the right way, and I think I've influenced them well. And most of all, I have their trust. It's so powerful, Tom. Such a powerful thing. Well, guys, again, I know we started off with this issue of, when somebody says no, you're not going to overcome that specific decision of theirs, but you can help them make a different decision based on things that you're going to only know if you study the craft of selling. And I think it's, as Zig said, and not only is everybody in sales, but we all need to be, we want to be in sales if we're doing it the right way. Tom, man, always a gift. Love hearing the stories. I always hear something I haven't known, and I need them repeated over and over and over, just like we ended with. Thanks, brother.
That's right. We don't need to be told, but we do need to be reminded. So,
Amen.
absolutely. Perfect. Thanks, brother.